everybody, welcome to Pepe's Plants YouTube channel. A lot of times people will ask me, why is your channel called Pepe's Plants? It's all about fruit trees, and then it says Pepe's Fruit Trees. Well, when I first started my business years and years ago, and I had the nursery, I was big into everything, all types of plants, from ornamental plants to the exotic palm trees, and then I also loved the idea of gardening and growing my own food. So yeah, my focus is a lot on fruit trees and edibles, but I have some great information also to share with you about some tropical and some ornamental plants, tropical and subtropical. And to my right, I have a plant called an abutilon. Abutilon is in the mallow family. It's related to hibiscus, and this particular one is called a abutilon. I think this one's called a tiger stripe. I don't know if you can see the flower right there. It's beautiful, looks like a little Chinese lantern. And I'll tell you the story about this plant. I saw this plant in a nursery about, was it a year ago? No, it was about 2.5 years ago. And it was about this size, just a small plant, much smaller than this beauty. And I said to the guy, hey, how much are those things? The guy wanted like $50, 50 bucks. Look, money's money, right? If you really want it, you buy it. My wife said, no, do not buy that. I'm like, okay. She goes, no, that's crazy. And she was right. To me, it was an awful lot of money. It's less of a plant than this, and they wanted $50. If you haven't been out to the nurseries lately, and I'm sure you have plants gotten expensive, or is my imagination? They're a lot of money, these plants. So you know what? You can make your own. And that's how I got this one. It's so funny how things work. I go to my friend's yard, I hadn't seen in years, and this thing's grown like a tree practically in the backyard. Thing's like 5 foot tall, it's beautiful. I say, hey, can I get a couple of cuttings? He goes, yeah, take all you want. So I only took two. I took 2 little cuttings, and I came home and I said, all right, let's get this thing going. And it's been about 2 years, I think. So 2 years later, I've got this beauty over here, and this is the third one. This is the third one I've grown, because I don't have a lot of time to do this, but my wife wanted one. I surprised her. I got the cutting going, and now we have this beautiful one over here. I have another one over here. Look at this guy. And there's more in the back. I have about 3 or 4 of these in the back as well. And they all came from these mother plants right here. Put this guy back. So, enough talk, right? Let me show you how to do this. So how do you get yourself a beautiful tree like this in about, I would say, 6 months to a year, depending on where you live. And it's pretty easy. So what you want to do is you want to get yourself a nice little cutting. And there's a couple of places you can take it. And a lot of times people will come up to the top and they'll take a cutting from up here. But you kind of mess up the shape and form of your bush or your tree that way. So you can actually look at the bottom and check this out, right? Look at this beautiful guy. So I can come down here and I'll come all the way down to the base and I'll cut this right there. And now I have this piece, which I will show you what we do with in just a moment. So here we go. The easiest way to propagate these things from cuttings is to do the following, okay? Depending on how many you're gonna make. I'm only gonna make 1 or 2 of these. We'll go and we'll look at, we have flower, 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 okay? So first thing to do is we're gonna remove these flowers. We don't need them, they're gonna cause problems. We're gonna remove that flower, we're gonna remove this flower, and I can just pinch off the tip flower there. Just pinch that off, okay? And then I'm gonna go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nodes. Gonna cut that down, get rid of it at an angle, just get rid of it. Gonna remove this. Gonna remove this. I see another flower I didn't see before over here. We're gonna remove him. And the leaf, and this leaf. We're gonna be left with just that little bit, okay? Then I'm gonna cut this leaf in half. And I'm gonna cut that leaf also. And that's all I have. That's it. This here now is suddenly freaking out. The plant is saying, whoa, I've got wounds, I'm damaged, I have to repair myself. And I have to do that pretty quickly. So this plant is releasing hormones right now. And those hormones are survival mechanism. It's trying to consider, what am I doing here? It has no idea what to do right now, okay? But it's going to real soon. What we're gonna do is we're gonna then take this cutting and put it in a well-draining potting soil, a good quality potting soil. You don't need any fertilizer, you just need a good potting soil, okay? It's gonna have some perlite in there, and that's gonna also help to create an environment of, let's say, enough porosity so that the roots are not just sitting there soaking wet all the time, because you're gonna use very little water. You're gonna take this and you're gonna make a decision. Do I use a hormone like something like this, Dip and Grow? A lot of people use it. I think that you don't always need it, and I know for sure you don't need it with this plant. But if you have some plants that you do have a lot of difficulty, these are very beneficial. Dip and Grow is good. It's very strong. It's equivalent, if I'm not mistaken, it's equivalent to Hormidin 3, which is a powder, and it comes in 1, 2, and 3. And this you mix as you need. So there's a little tube inside of 2 ounces. So you get your 2-ounce bottle, you've got your instructions, and you mix based on the amount you're going to use. So this tube has, 3 ounces, 4 ounces, and there's very little you need in order to make the amount that you're going to use per plant. So I'm not going to use this today, but I wanted to point it out to you that sometimes you do need it. In this case, for this plant, it seems to work fine without it. So we've made the cut, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I said 5 nodes. I'm going to take off 1 more, and I'm going to bury it 2 nodes deep. So 1, 2 nodes deep. Push down, 2 nodes deep. That's it. I am going to water this lightly 1 time. I'm going to put a little water in there, okay? And then the next thing I'm going to do is place this in a bright location, okay? And I'm going to check it every day, because you and I don't have right now a nursery operation with a tent, okay, a propagation area with a dome that has misting and clocks and timers and perfect micronized sprays and so on, in order to spray water on this often enough to make sure that those little leaves do not dry out. And at the same time, you don't want the soil to be soaking wet, because what you want to create at home is an environment where your plant wants to get a little water, but is not stressing out where there's no water, but the soil has very little water in it, but has plenty of porosity, but there is water in the soil. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Your soil has to have porosity so that there's air around those roots that are coming, the roots that are going to be formed. And why is it going to form roots? It's going to form roots because it's a survival mechanism, okay? If that soil is very wet, there's no way the roots are going to form. There's no reason for me to form roots. The plant was freaking out. It has to decide what it's going to do in a hurry, okay? Now, it doesn't mean that this all happens quickly, but it cannot be in a wet, mucky situation with no air around the roots and no moisture around the roots, because that's just death, okay? But by the same token, too little water or too much water, it will not make it. As I've said many times, plants do want to survive. They keep hanging on and doing their best. So it's kind of up to us to not baby them too much, but at the same time, give them that ability to survive. So we will now take this, we'll put a little water in it, and take a soda bottle, cut off the top, take the soda bottle, after you spray this with some water, and then water the soil lightly. You'll want to go to a place that's semi, like bright shade, filtered light, and then just cover it. And you want a couple of holes in this bottle too, because you want to see a situation, you want to observe this every day, and you want to see a little bit of moisture inside the dome. You want to see little water droplets inside the dome. If it's completely dry and there's no water droplets in there at all, well, you don't have enough humidity around those leaves, and the chances are your cutting is probably not going to make it. You can set this up on a table, put a couple of cups out, and then just put this thing over it after you spray them, and then it has a little, see these little vents? It's got these little vents on top that you can kind of control how much moisture you want inside. So, but you don't have to do this. You can just do this if you're just doing 1 or 2. You can just put these little things over. It's cheaper. Make sure there's a couple of holes here on this thing, because as I showed you, there are vents here, so you can control that moisture. And then finally, what I did not mention earlier was that when you are going to use these little Dixie cups, of course, you've got to put holes in the bottom, okay? But a lot of times you'll punch a hole down here and just crack the cup. So what I've learned is just go to the edge with a little scissor. Just cut that edge there. Just cut that edge just a little bit. See? Maybe with 3 little cuts. See the water coming out now? Okay, you end up with a cool little Dixie cup that's great for starting seeds, and it's also good for propagating cuttings the way I just showed you here. So anyway, again, to recap, you don't need to have the rooting hormone necessarily, whether it's a powder or whether it's a gel or whether it's a liquid. You don't have to have it. Try it without it. Also, sometimes some people will use honey and they say it works great. I haven't tried honey, but you know, I hear it works great. So getting back to the cutting. So the cutting is now here. I would not leave it here necessarily. I will move this over to my left where I have a little more filtered light. And in about as little as 2 weeks, this guy is going to look good. It's going to have some new growth on it. And you're going to be tempted when you see the new growth to repot it and right away think your plant. No, sometimes, a lot of times, you're going to get new growth, lots of new growth, and there's no roots barely, just very little or none at all. You'll see some growth and there's no roots. So give it a good amount of time. Give it at least a month in that little pot and make sure it's really well rooted in the pot before you go ahead and start to think that it's ready to go, and you put it out in bright sun and the thing didn't even have any roots and it's dead in like a couple of hours. So keep that in mind. Now, one other quick thing you can use if you have, if you're going to do more than one plant, you're going to do a bunch of them, then you could use something like these Dixie cups, and you can also put this is cheap. I think these are like $3. I don't know. You could find them somewhere. All right, so now that you know how to propagate your own plants, you'll be saving some money, and you can say, thanks, Pepe. That was real kind of you. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Give me a thumbs up if you like the channel and subscribe. We love having you here. Leave us a couple of comments. Take care. Bye.